So if you don't like snakes, don't watch this video. We had a great Memorial Day weekend. My wife Sue and I, with some mutual friends, we went out to our good friends Paul and Karen's house, and about 10 or 12 of us just had a great weekend. We floated, we fished, we grilled out, we sat around a campfire, sat in front of a fireplace. We just had a really awesome time. Rode around the property in the Polaris. And while we were doing that, we came across something that really is just spectacular. Our friend Paul, who's is educated in zoology, has a degree in zoology. He's a lifelong outdoor enthusiast, fishing, hunting, hiking, camping, all that stuff. And he said he had never seen this before. I personally had never seen it like this. I'd seen something similar with some other species of snake. Oh, and by the way, if you don't like snakes, don't watch this video. But if you're into snakes or you're just curious about them, I think you might like this. So anyway, I was going to do one post about our whole weekend, but we did so many different things. I thought I'm going to break it up, and this one on these darn western rat snakes, which I've always called black snakes. Turns out I think they're western rat snakes. I'm 99.9% sure that's what these are. Anyway, hope you enjoy it, and then I'll be back with more on some of the other things we did on Memorial Day weekend. Thank you guys for tuning in. So we all got out there Friday night. We were just riding around Paul and Karen's property on the Polaris, and Josephus said, "Hey, is that a snake crawling that tree over there?" And turns out it was not just one snake, but there was actually two snakes. And this was just one of the most unusual and the coolest things that I've personally witnessed out in the wild. And I've spent a lot of time out in the woods and since I was a kid and all through adulthood, and this first time I've seen this. In fact, Paul, who is educated in zoology. In fact, he has a degree in zoology from the University of Arkansas, and is a lifelong outdoor enthusiast like I am, hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, all that stuff. And he said he'd never seen this, and we were just all fascinated. You know, a few years ago, or I should say there was a time in my life, this would have probably kind of grossed me out. The thought of just snakes in general. Not grossed me out, but I just didn't like snakes. I'm not saying I like them now, but they're there, and so kind of like the wasp, you might as well embrace them. But to see two huge, I'll get back to that in a second, that male was just massive, but to see two huge black snakes or rat snakes in the wild mating, I mean, that's just unbelievable, just kind of crazy. You know, I've got to tell you, the peanut gallery back there sitting on the Polaris at a safe distance, they were offering quite a few quips and suggestions and ideas and thoughts about these snakes. But Joe had suggested maybe I make two videos, one an adult version and one a family friendly. But you know, I told him I don't know. Snake porn probably is not something that should be on the internet in any form or fashion. Anyway. I wanted to really get up there close, so you know, to capture. I wasn't sure what kind of snakes they were. I thought they were just black snakes. That one, which I think is the female, the one that's just solid black on top, and then she's white on her underbelly. I'm pretty confident that's the female. The larger one there that has the brown background on him, that I'm pretty confident was the male, and he was probably twice the size of that female, and at minimum had to be 6 feet long. He might have been 7. You'll see here in a little bit when he crawls up, they start crawling up that limb toward the crotch of that tree up there, that how long they were. At least 6 feet, maybe 7. It could have been longer. I mean, he was massive. Wish I'd have had a tape measure with me to stick up there or something just to get some scale for you as you're watching this. But you know, found out a lot. I did a little bit of research, more than I normally do on the black snake. Turns out these are, again, I'm 99.9% sure these are western rat snakes, and they go by known by a bunch of different names: pilot black snake, simply just black snake, rat snake, gray rat snake, chicken snake, mountain black snake, cow snake, and a handful of others. But that picture right there I took off the internet. That first one looked like exactly that female. That second one looked exactly like that male, and so I'm again real confident that's what they are. You know, these snakes, well, I'm just going to call them rat snakes for the rest of a couple of minutes of this video, but rat snakes, this is exactly the habitat they like. They particularly like to hang around oak trees. They like to hang around old barns and sheds and things, anywhere where there's rats, mice, voles, that kind of thing. They eat squirrels, small rabbits, even juvenile possums, and they eat all kind of bird eggs, birds. They hang out apparently a significant amount of the time up in the trees. And I have got to think about over the years, I've probably seen as many black snakes crawling around up like in the rafters outside an old barn. One time over at almost Uncle Tom's house, he had a big old huge snake he'd been seeing for years up in the rafters of his barn and around his barn. But they spend a lot of their time up in the trees, I guess, looking for food, staying away from predators. They've got several natural predators, but that list kind of goes down as they get older and bigger, and they're constrictors, so they're able to catch their prey, squeeze them to death, and or hold them until they swallow them whole. That's the way they do it. They're not an aggressive species. I knew that. Again, my whole life have just known these as black snakes, but I knew they're not an aggressive species. But they will if they feel threatened. I mean, they'll strike at you. They don't have fangs. They're non-venomous. I've always heard if you get bit by a black snake or a rat snake, as I know them now from now on, that you can get an infection. I suppose if they break the skin, you could get infected, and that makes sense. But best thing to do is just don't get so close to one if it has a chance to coil up. They don't really coil. They kind of spring back and lurch at you. I had one do that to me one time out there at Squirrel Ranch, and just because it felt threatened, I was trying to lift him up and move it, but was unsuccessful really in doing that. He wasn't interested in being moved, but just fascinating to watch these darn things. And so I don't know if they finished up and then they crawled up, and a little bit later on we came back by after we went down the river and checked it out. We came back by and they were up in the crotch of this tree up there between where that tree, I think it was a walnut tree, I believe, and they were up there. Joe said when we came by, he looked up there, he said, I think that big one's smoking a cigarette. I don't know. I'm pretty confident it was not, but you kind of get the gist there. But anyway, what a cool experience. So cool to watch it. And I was excited to kind of do that research and find out a lot more than I ever knew about them before. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed that. And more to come.